Betrayal doesn't come crashing through your front door like a burglar. It seeps in, quiet and insidious, like a slow gas leak, poisoning everything before you even realize you're suffocating. Looking back, the signs were all there. Emily had been my wife for nearly a decade, and in all those years I thought I knew her. But people change, or maybe they just reveal who they've been all along when they think you're not looking. First, it was small things. A sudden enthusiasm for late-night gym sessions when she had never set foot in one before. A new perfume, expensive and musky, the kind that didn't smell like her. Then came the giggles at texts she wouldn't let me see, the unexplained credit card charges, and the way she always seemed in a hurry to leave home but dragged her feet when it was time to come back. I told myself I was paranoid. After all, wasn't this the same woman who once surprised me at work with my favorite takeout, just because she missed my face? The same woman who used to curl up against me every night like I was the only thing keeping her warm? I wanted to believe I was imagining it, but deep down I knew. The final straw came one evening when she claimed she was heading out to dinner with some work friends. That wasn't unusual, her job required a lot of networking. But something about the way she said it, how she wouldn't meet my eyes, made my stomach twist. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. I waited a few minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and took a different route to the restaurant she had mentioned. But she wasn't there. Instead, I found her at a cozy little steakhouse across town, sitting at a dimly lit table for two, and across from her, laughing at something she said, was him. He was younger, maybe early 30s, dressed in an expensive-looking button-down with his sleeves rolled up just enough to show off his toned forearms. He leaned in as he talked, reaching across the table, touching her hand like it belonged to him. And Emily? She wasn't pulling away. No, she was smiling. Smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. I stood outside in the shadows, my fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. A part of me wanted to storm in, flip the table, demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. That would give her a chance to talk her way out of it, to lie, to manipulate. I needed something more. Something final. So I left. I drove straight home, my mind racing. The anger, the pain, it was all consuming. But then, somewhere in that storm of emotions, an idea took root. A way to end this in a way she wouldn't see coming. I called a locksmith. By the time she was clinking glasses with her lover, laughing at whatever inside joke they shared, the locks on our house were being replaced. Every single one. Took less than an hour. The locksmith didn't ask questions. Just did his job and left. I sat in the dimly lit living room, waiting, watching the clock, imagining the moment she would try to walk through that door like she always had. Then my phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. Hey, babe. Something's wrong with my key. The lock won't turn. There was an edge in her voice, a nervous chuckle at the end, like she thought this was just some misunderstanding. I leaned back on the couch, exhaled slowly, and smiled. Yeah, I know. Silence. On the other end of the line, Emily didn't say a word at first. I could hear the rustling of her coat, the faint scrape of metal against the door as she tried the key again, like she thought maybe, just maybe, this was some kind of mistake. What do you mean, you know? She finally asked, her voice sharp with confusion. I could picture her standing there, her face twisted in frustration, her perfectly curled hair slightly out of place from a night of flirting and laughing with him. I mean, I changed the locks, I said evenly, letting the weight of my words sink in. There was another pause, but this time, it wasn't silence I heard. It was her breath hitching, the sound of her trying to process the situation. You what? Why would you do that? Her voice was rising now, panic creeping in at the edges. I glanced at the clock. It was past midnight. She hadn't bothered to check in all night, hadn't texted or called, probably assuming I was just at home like a good little husband, waiting for her to return. But she had no idea how much had changed in just a few hours. Where are you, Emily? I asked, my tone casual. What does that matter? I'm at the door, and I can't get in. This isn't funny. I let out a slow breath, standing up from the couch and walking toward the window. Sure enough, there she was, standing on the porch, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression shifting between frustration and worry. "It's not supposed to be funny," I replied. "You don't live here anymore." A sharp intake of breath. Then, just like that, the switch flipped. "Oh my God. Are you serious right now? You're pulling some kind of stunt because I went out for dinner with friends." Her voice was dripping with fake outrage, the same kind of tone she used when she wanted to make me feel like the crazy one. But not this time. "Friends, huh?" I said, stepping closer to the window but staying hidden behind the curtain. "That's funny, because I happen to see you. And unless you suddenly consider holding hands and gazing lovingly into each other's eyes something friends do, I'd say you've been lying to me for a while." The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost hear her brain scrambling for an excuse, a way out. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, her voice a little less steady now. Were you following me?" I laughed, a low, humorless sound. "Don't flatter yourself, Emily. I didn't need to follow you. You've been sloppy, leaving your phone out, acting different. Hell, even your credit card statements told me everything I needed to know. I just had to put the pieces together." A long pause. Then finally she snapped. "So what? You're just gonna lock me out of my own house like some kind of psycho?" That word, psycho, made me clench my jaw. The way she said it, like I was the bad guy in all of this, like I was the one betraying her. I forced myself to take a breath, keep my voice calm. "No, Emily," I said. "I'm locking a cheater out of my house. There's a difference." Her voice cracked. "This is my home too, Jason. My things are in there. I have nowhere to go." I glanced over at the neatly packed suitcases I had left by the garage door. "You do now," I said. "Your stuff is outside in the driveway. You might want to grab it before someone else does." I could hear her breath turn ragged, her anger bubbling over. "You're gonna regret this," she spat. "No," I said firmly. "I regret not doing it sooner." Then, before she could spew another word, I hung up. I watched from the shadows as she stood frozen, staring at her phone like she couldn't believe what just happened. Then, slowly, she stepped down from the porch and walked toward the driveway. And just when I thought the night was over, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. Headlights. A sleek, dark car pulled up at the curb, its engine humming softly, and out stepped him. Nathan. He looked around, confused at first, then spotted Emily standing next to the suitcases. He said something to her, but I couldn't hear from where I stood. And then, this was the part that nearly made me laugh, he started arguing with her. Emily gestured toward the house, her arms flailing, but Nathan wasn't having it. His hands were in his pockets, his body language stiff, like he had not signed up for whatever mess she was trying to drag him into. I leaned against the window, watching with quiet satisfaction as my cheating wife stood outside her home, locked out, abandoned by the very man she had risked everything for. She had made her choice. Now she would have to live with it. I stood at the window, watching the chaos unfold like a front-row spectator at a show I never asked to be a part of. Emily stood in the driveway, her arms waving as she spoke in hushed, frantic tones to Nathan, her lover, the man she thought would be her escape from our marriage. But here's the thing about affairs. Fantasies don't survive in the real world. And judging by the way Nathan was reacting, he was realizing just how real this had become. I watched as his jaw tightened. His hands stayed shoved deep in his pockets, and his body angled slightly away from her, like he wanted nothing more than to be anywhere but here. Emily, on the other hand, looked like she was falling apart. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I saw the moment she pointed at the house, then at her suitcases. Nathan shook his head. She gestured again, stepping toward him, but he took a step back. Oh, this was good. Couldn't help but smirk. She thought she could cheat, lie, betray me, and that her lover would just swoop in and save her? That's not how these stories go. And as if to prove my point, Nathan suddenly threw his hands up and turned toward his car. Emily's entire body tensed. She grabbed his arm, but he yanked it free. I couldn't hold back the low chuckle that rumbled in my chest. Of course, he wanted her when she was a secret, something thrilling and new. But now that she was homeless, with nothing but the clothes on her back and a bunch of hastily packed bags? She wasn't a fantasy anymore. She was baggage. Nathan got into his car. Emily pounded on the window, her face red with frustration, but he just shook his head, said something through the glass, and then he drove off. I wish I could have taken a picture of the moment reality slammed into her. She stood there, frozen, staring after the taillights as they disappeared into the night. Then, slowly, she turned toward the house. I saw the moment she spotted me. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just stood at the window, arms crossed, staring right back at her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then her face twisted in fury, and she stormed toward the porch, grabbing her phone as she went. Seconds later, my phone exploded with calls. I let them ring. Then came the texts. Emily, you're insane. Let me in now. Emily. This is MY House 2, Jason. I have rights. Emily. I swear to God, if you don't open this door. And then, Emily, please, just talk to me. There it was. The moment when the anger crumbled. When she realized screaming at me wouldn't fix this. I picked up the phone. Talk? About what, Emily? About how you've been sleeping with another man for months. About how you thought I'd be stupid enough to just let you waltz back in here like nothing happened. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end. I wasn't, she started, but I cut her off. Don't lie to me, Emily. I saw you. I saw you with him. You can't weasel your way out of this one. Silence. Then, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. Oh? So how was it supposed to happen? Were you planning to sneak around until I caught you in our bed? Or were you just going to wait until you drained my bank account before running off with him? Jason, please? She sounded small now, weak, like the weight of everything had finally come crashing down on her. You made your choice, Emily, I said, my voice colder than I thought it could be. Now you get to live with it. Then I hung up. I could hear her scream in frustration outside. She kicked one of her suitcases, then threw her phone onto the pavement. I could have ended it there, could have walked away, let her drown in her own mess. But no, I wasn't done yet. Emily wanted to destroy my life? Then I was going to make sure she had nothing left. And this was only the beginning. I stood by the window watching Emily unravel in real time. She kicked her suitcase again, her breath coming in ragged gasps, fists clenched at her sides. She was furious, not because she felt guilt, not because she regretted betraying me, but because I had taken control of the situation before she could. That was the thing about cheaters. They wanted power. They wanted to control the narrative. Not this time. I let her simmer in her rage for a few minutes before stepping away from the window. She wasn't getting inside. That was settled. But there were still things to take care of. I grabbed my laptop from the kitchen counter, flipped it open, and pulled up the folder I had put together over the last couple of weeks. Screenshots of her messages, credit card transactions that didn't add up, even a few photos of her and Nathan from the restaurant. I had collected everything, and now I was going to use it. I logged into our shared bank account. Well, technically, it wasn't shared anymore. I had already transferred my money out days ago, leaving only what she had contributed, peanuts compared to what I had earned. She had always relied on me financially. That was her first mistake. I clicked the final button, closing out the account. Next, I opened my email. I had one ready to go, sitting in my drafts, addressed to everyone in our circle, friends, family, even some of her coworkers. I read over it one last time. Subject: the truth about Emily. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment to let you all know what's been going on. I'm sure Emily will try to spin her own version of events, so I figured it's best to just lay out the facts. Over the past few months, Emily has been having an affair with someone she met at work. I discovered the truth recently and, as of tonight, I have changed the locks and ended our marriage. I'm sharing this not because I want sympathy, but because I refuse to let lies control the situation. If she tells you otherwise, just know that I have proof. I won't air out every dirty detail, but if you ever wondered why she suddenly had new jewelry, expensive nights out, and a work dinner almost every week. Well, now you know. I appreciate the support from those who have already reached out. I'll be moving on from this, and I suggest she does the same. Take care, Jason. I hovered over the send button, took a deep breath, and clicked it. It was done. Emily wanted to keep secrets? I had just made sure there were none left to keep. Then, just as I was shutting my laptop, my phone buzzed again. But this time it wasn't Emily. It was her mother. I hesitated. I liked her mom, always had. She was the one who had supported us through the hard times, who had welcomed me into the family like a son. But I had no doubt why she was calling now. I let it ring twice, then answered. "Jason, what's going on?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. "Did Emily call you?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Yes, she did," her mom said carefully. "She's outside the house, Jason. She says you locked her out, that you're overreacting." I laughed. "Overreacting?" I echoed. "Did she tell you about Nathan? Did she tell you how she's been sneaking around behind my back for months?" Silence. She said it wasn't like that. Her mom finally admitted, her voice quieter. "Oh, it's exactly like that," I said. "And I'm done. I sent the proof to everyone already. She can tell whatever story she wants. But the truth is out." Another long pause. Then her mother sighed. "I had a feeling something was wrong. I just didn't want to believe it." "Well, now you know." I heard rustling on the other end. Then her mom's voice, firmer this time. "Jason, I want you to know I don't condone what she did. I raised her better than this. But," she hesitated, "she has nowhere to go right now. Can I pick her up?" I glanced back at the window. Emily was still standing outside, arms wrapped around herself, looking small, pathetic. I could have made her stay out there all night. Could have let her feel what it was like to be abandoned. But I wasn't her. "She's your daughter," I said, my voice void of emotion. "If you want to take her in, be my guest. But don't expect me to ever take her back." Her mom sighed again. "I understand." I hung up without another word. Then, finally, I stepped away from the window and turned off the porch light. Emily was still standing there when her mom's car pulled up. And as she gathered her things and climbed into the passenger seat, I watched her steal one last glance at the house, the life she had destroyed with her own choices. She wanted a new life with her lover? Well, now she had nothing. And I had just begun my new chapter without her. As I watched Emily drive off in her mother's car, a strange sense of finality settled over me. The house, once filled with the echoes of our life together, suddenly felt different, lighter, as if her betrayal had been a weight pressing down on me for months. And now, with her gone, I could finally breathe again. But I knew better than to assume it was over. Cheaters don't go down quietly. They lash out, grasping at anything they can to regain control. And Emily? She had just lost everything. Her home, her dignity, and most importantly, her secrets. I had barely sat down when my phone buzzed again. I expected more of her desperate messages, but instead, it was from an old friend. Mark. A guy I hadn't spoken to much since Emily and I got married. "Mark. Hey man. Just got your email. Jesus. I had no idea. If you need anything, let me know." Then, another message came in. "Lisa, holy SHT Jason. She told us you were struggling in the marriage. She said you were the problem. I can't believe this." Asterisk. More and more messages flooded in, some from friends, some from her friends, all reacting to the truth I had laid bare. And then, one message stopped me cold. "David, bro, I wasn't gonna say anything, but I think there's more to this than just that Nathan guy. You need to call me." I stared at my screen. More? I didn't hesitate. I hit call, and David picked up almost immediately. "Jason," he said, his voice low, "I need to tell you something, and you're not gonna like it." I sat forward, bracing myself. "Tell me." David sighed. "I work near that steakhouse you saw her at. I've seen her there before, but not always with the same guy." My grip tightened on the phone. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Nathan might not be the only guy she was seeing." My blood turned to ice. "You're sure?" I asked. Jason. I saw her there last month with some dude in a suit, way older than Nathan. And before that, she was having drinks with someone else at a rooftop bar. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now, it makes sense. A wave of nausea rolled through me. This wasn't just an affair. This was a pattern. Emily hadn't just betrayed me with one man. She had been living a double life. You need to be careful, man, David added. She's gonna come after you for whatever she can. You embarrassed her. She's gonna want revenge. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I appreciate you telling me. Really. Just don't let her manipulate you. We hung up, but I sat there, staring at the wall, my mind racing. If David was right, if Emily had been seeing multiple men, then what else had she been hiding? I needed to find out. So I started digging. I opened our joint credit statements again, combing through the transactions I had previously overlooked. The fancy restaurants weren't just occasional, they were frequent. Jewelry stores, hotel charges, even plane tickets. And then I saw it. A charge from a hotel in another state. A reservation under her name. For 2 people. She had taken a trip with someone. And she had never told me. I clenched my jaw, my pulse hammering. This was bigger than I thought. And if I wanted to truly end this, I needed to know everything. Emily had played her game behind my back for far too long. Now, it was my turn. I sat in the dim glow of my laptop screen, my pulse pounding as I stared at the hotel charge. This wasn't just a local affair. Emily had taken her deception on the road. The hotel was 3 states away, a high-end resort, the kind couples go to for romantic getaways. Not business trips. I clenched my jaw. David was right. Nathan wasn't the only one. Emily had been living an entirely separate life, funding it with my money, smiling in my face while sneaking off to God knows where with God knows who. And she thought I was just going to let it slide? I started pulling everything. Emails, call logs, bank statements. I logged into our shared airline account and found more trips. Some with rewards points, some with my damn credit card. She had flown to Miami, Chicago, even Vegas. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. One of the reservations had an extra charge. A spa package. But not just any spa package. A couple's massage. I leaned back, exhaling through my nose, gripping the armrest so tight my knuckles went white. How long had this been going on? How stupid did she think I was? I scrolled further, looking at the dates. Some were during weekends I had been working late. Others, they overlapped with times she had claimed to be visiting her parents. I let out a bitter laugh. So not only was she lying to me, she was lying to her own mother too. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over Emily's contact. I had so many things I wanted to say, to scream, but then I stopped myself. No, I wasn't going to give her that power. I wasn't going to let her spin her lies, make excuses, cry and say it wasn't what it looked like. Instead, I opened my messages and typed a single text. Me, I know everything. And then I sent her a photo of the hotel receipt. The message was marked as read almost instantly. I didn't get a reply, not at first. But then she called. I let it ring. Then, another text. Emily, Jason, please, let's talk. This is all a misunderstanding. I nearly threw my phone across the room. A misunderstanding? I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and replied. Me. Was Vegas a misunderstanding? Was Miami? Was the couple's massage a mistake? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Emily, I was going to tell you. It wasn't serious. I needed something different. I laughed bitterly. Me? Something different? You mean multiple men? You needed a vacation from being a decent wife? Silence. Then, Emily, I made mistakes. But you didn't have to humiliate me like this. You sent that email to everyone. There it was. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. She was sorry people knew. I let out a slow exhale, my anger turning to something colder, sharper. Me. You humiliated yourself, Emily. I just let people see the truth. And then, I sent her one last message. Me. Don't ever contact me again. Then, I blocked her. Her number, her email, even her damn social media. I wasn't going to waste another second of my life listening to her pathetic justifications. She was done. And now, it was time to make sure she stayed that way. The second I blocked Emily, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was in control. But I knew better than to think she'd just disappear quietly. Cheaters don't like to lose. And Emily? She had lost everything. Her home, her reputation, and most importantly, the control she once had over me. She wasn't going to accept that without a fight. And sure enough, within an hour, my phone lit up with unknown numbers calling. I ignored them. Then came the emails. From new accounts, desperate messages begging me to talk, to be reasonable, to hear her side of the story. I ignored those too. Then she switched tactics. She went nuclear. I woke up the next morning to a voicemail from my job. Jason, we received an email with some concerning allegations. Can you come in today to discuss? I clenched my jaw. Emily was trying to ruin me. I had heard of people doing this before. Scorned spouses making up lies, trying to get their exes fired out of revenge. And Emily? She was desperate. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to work, keeping my emotions in check. I wasn't about to let her win. When I walked into HR, my manager, Tom, looked uncomfortable. Jason, I hate to do this, but we need to address some concerns, he said. Your wife, he hesitated, correcting himself. Your ex-wife sent us an email claiming you've been emotionally abusive and financially controlling. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. And you believe that? I asked. Tom sighed. Look, I don't, but the company has to take these things seriously. I took a breath, then pulled out my phone. Good, because I came prepared. I showed him the emails, the texts, proof of her affairs, her lies, the manipulation. Tom barely skimmed through them before shaking his head. Jesus, Jason. She's unhinged. Yeah, and she's only getting started. I muttered. He nodded. Don't worry. We'll handle it. You're not going anywhere. I exhaled, tension leaving my shoulders. Emily's first attempt to take me down failed. But I knew she wouldn't stop there. So I decided to end it for good. That night I met with a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A shark. I laid everything out, her infidelity, the financial records, the false accusations. My lawyer, Mason, leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. You want to play hardball? He asked. I didn't hesitate. I want to destroy any chance she has of coming after me. Mason smirked. Then let's get to work. The next morning, Emily must have realized her plan wasn't working, because I woke up to a different kind of message. Her mother, again. Emily's mom, Jason, please. She's falling apart. She's losing everything. Can you at least speak to her? I stared at the message for a long time. Then, finally, I typed my reply. She made her bed. Now she gets to lie in it. And I meant it. Because by the end of the day, Emily wouldn't have a bed to lie in. Not my house. Not my life. Not ever again. By the time the dust settled, Emily had lost everything. Her desperate attempts to drag me down failed spectacularly. HR dismissed her accusations. My lawyer made sure she couldn't come after my assets. And since she had no savings of her own, because she had spent years living off my income, she was left with nothing. I heard through the grapevine that Nathan, her one true love, had cut ties completely after realizing she was financially useless to him. Turns out he wasn't looking for a relationship, he was looking for a sugar mama. And Emily? She wasn't it. With no home, no money, and no friends willing to take her in after my email exposed her, she was forced to move in with her mother. Meanwhile, I was thriving. With Emily gone, my life became lighter. I poured myself into my work, reconnected with friends I had lost touch with, started living instead of just existing. And then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, months after everything had settled, I was sitting at a cafe, enjoying a coffee and reading a book, when a woman sat down at the table next to me. She wasn't flashy. No over-the-top makeup, No fake giggles or forced charm. Just a warm smile and genuine energy that I hadn't realized I had been missing. Her name was Anna, and when she smiled at me, really smiled, I realized something. I had spent so much time being angry, being betrayed, that I had forgotten what it felt like to be seen, to be appreciated, to be free. Emily had thought she was destroying me, but in reality, she had set me free. I smiled back at Anna, because for the first time in years, I was ready to start again.